Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the GF Ideas webinar on exporting smart protein, how to tap into international markets. I am Ujasvi Uppal, regulatory consultant at GFI India. I have a background in food safety laws and regulations. I support the industry in navigating the regulatory framework for smart protein products by creating regulatory guides and other capacity building tools. I will co-moderate today's session with my colleague Akash Raj Bhople, a corporate engagement associate at GFI India. He works on strengthening the upstream value chain for smart protein in India through capacity building, forging multi-stakeholder partnerships, and conducting research and analytics. Today, we are joined by Harsh Hirudursani, partner at PLR Chambers, who is an expert in food laws, regulatory compliance, and trade laws. We also have Sanjay Kavalekar and Sudhakar Patnaik, co-founders of Resources Nature Trading. They have extensive experience promoting and distributing plant-based foods in the Middle East. We also have Akash Vadwani, co-founder of Oat MLK, the only Indian plant-based milk company currently exporting to over 5 countries. Before we proceed, let me introduce you to GFI India. For those who are not yet familiar with our organization, the Good Food Institute India is the leading expert organization and thought leader in the Indian smart protein sector. GFI India is dedicated to advancing secure, sustainable, and just global food future and is working to create an ecosystem that enables India to become a smart protein hub. We primarily function across four broad pillars: science and technology, corporate engagement, innovation, and policy. The GFI Ideas India community is a community for innovators transforming our food system by creating or expanding access to smart protein solutions. The community aims to advance the smart protein ecosystem in and for India. The GFI Ideas LinkedIn community is a platform for networking, sharing community updates, hiring requests, and news resources. Additionally, the GFI Ideas hosts regular knowledge sharing webinars, such as this one, and multiple social and professional networking events. We also publish newsletters featuring deep dives across various topics in smart protein sector. At the end of this webinar, you will receive a survey asking you to share your feedback and suggestions. Your input will help us collate resources such as regulatory guide and distributor mapping. The results of the survey will help us curate more such sessions and support the GF Ideas community. We will also drop the link to join the GF Ideas India community in the chat box, so keep an eye out for it. GFI India also has a regulatory advisory council known as RAC, consisting of legal and regulatory experts who have experience across different areas such as food laws and compliances, intellectual property rights, company and general corporate laws, and other requirements needed to operate a business in the smart protein sector in India. We have primed these legal and regulatory experts about the need of the smart protein sector and routinely collaborate with them to provide a platform for one-on-one and collective advisory for smart protein companies. We also work with them to build an ecosystem capacity by creating resources such as written articles and guides and organizing events to disseminate knowledge. RAC members also support GFI India in our engagement with the industry associations, policymakers, and government departments. In today's session, we will discuss the complexities of smart protein products, ensuring that India's innovation reach tables worldwide. The smart protein ecosystem in India has matured over the past 5 years to point where many established startups are foraying into the global markets and others are evaluating whether to follow the suit. Scaling internationally is a significant endeavor, and this webinar therefore intends to provide an understanding of the requisite compliances, documentation, and regulatory framework for the smart export of smart protein end products and ingredients from India. It will help you evaluate the export potential of your product portfolio and identify which markets to target based on their openness to internationalization and regulatory path to market. This webinar will also help you understand how to set up your export operations, including partnerships for shipping and distribution at the end market and accessing your target consumer. Please note that legal and regulatory compliances can vary widely depending on the nature of any food business. Information from today's session is not a legal advice and should not be construed as such. We recommend that you reach out to us for any specific questions, and we will be happy to share with you the network of professional counsel and experts supporting the sector. Without further delay, let us call our first speaker, Harsh Hirudursani, partner at PLR Chambers, an expert in the international trade laws, food laws, product regulations, and compliance. Harsh regularly supports food business operators, including smart protein companies, in navigating food regulatory compliance and litigation. Today, he will share his insights on the regulatory framework and compliances for exporting smart protein products. Over to you, Harsh.
Thank you for the introduction, Ojasvi, and thank you, GFI, for organizing the session for exporting from India, specifically for smart proteins. Um, it's a very timely subject and requires a lot of deliberation as well, considering the fact that India is becoming a major hub of producing smart protein and alternative uh, products which are of very significant market importance in India and abroad. It's relevant to see how or what can Indian exporters do for ensuring that they get a good foothold in foreign markets as well. Next slide, please. Uh, this slide just gives a basic overview of how or what the market for smart protein is across the world. And we've been seeing tremendous growth across various plant-based products in India and abroad. Overall, the smart agricultural market is expected to grow almost by 9.4 CAGR in the coming years, and is going to be worth 25.4 billion US dollars by 2028. And it shows a very promising market space for Indian smart protein manufacturers to be in. Even in India per se, from 2024, where today our market size is just a little less of 1 billion US dollars, it's expected to be $1.21 billion by 2029. So there's significant growth margin available for companies who are manufacturing smart proteins in India and looking to export it from India to the world as well. Next slide, please. India has had a strong export market across the board for all products, all agricultural products, considering that we are a predominantly vegetarian society where we already have products which are agri-based. Entering into vegan products or smart protein products is a natural progression that we can see our manufacturers move towards. And there is significant growth year on year in Indian agricultural exports. Smart proteins is taking a larger share in it, and we are hoping that going forward, smart proteins can actually play a significant role in Indian exports from agricultural products. The government of India also has been assisting and trying to assist exporters from India to export agricultural commodities as a whole more than before. We have PLI schemes as well as schemes such as ROTEP that allow for duty drawbacks or remission of duties which are there in the exported products to be gained back by the exporters. Next slide, please. So what do you require in order to export from India? Of course, the first aspects is you do require certain licensing that needs to be in place before you can actually start exporting from India. We will get into details of all the specifics in due course, but just to give you a brief overview of the basic requirements and licenses that are there, these include your FSSAI licenses, your company registration. You also require an importer-exporter code, which is issued by the DGFT. You may also need to register with certain specialized government agencies, which will allow you or provide you with certificates of origin or certificates for your factories to ensure that good manufacturing practices are in place in order to export to the world. Certain countries also require your products to have specialized certifications, such as, if your product is from microorganisms or has ingredients which may require certain sanitary certifications. You may require the importing country may impose a requirement of a sanitary certificate. Some countries, certain Islamic countries, require you to have halal certifications, which is applicable not just for non-vegetarian products, but also for vegetarian products. And there are certain export permissions required if you are exporting products which may not be considered as food, may have certain dual uses, so on and so forth. So there are certain licenses that you require before you can actually start exporting your products from India. I would also want to delve a little bit more on the FSSAI licenses. While FSSAI inherently does not regulate exports, however, since the products that y'all would be exporting, the smart protein products that you would be exporting from India, they would be manufactured in India, and therefore the manufacturer may require to have an FSSAI license with an exporter KOB included, a category of for exports included within the license. If the exporter is not the manufacturer themselves, they may require a manufacturer exporter if they're manufacturing and exporting directly. If they're not a manufacturer, they may require a trader exporter license from FSSAI in order to procure these products and export them outside India. Next slide, please. So what are the prerequisites that you need to consider before deciding or before exporting your product? Each country has a framework for regulating the food products in their country. In India, we have the FSSAI, the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, that administers the Food Standards and Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006 and the allied rules and regulations. So before you can export to any country, you would first need to look at what are the regulations and the legal requirements to export that particular product into that particular country from India. So say, for example, if you're exporting to Middle East, would does the regulator in one of the GCC countries, say UAE, allow you to export that product from India into that jurisdiction, whether the product complies with the regulations of that particular country or not? If you're exporting to the EU, for instance, you may need to also check whether or not your product meets the requirements, be it for contaminants, toxins, so on and so forth, before you can actually export that product from India to the EU. The second big aspect that is applicable to a product is the labeling. And as you would all know, that as soon as the product is entering into a foreign market, as soon as it's being imported into the jurisdiction where it's going to be sold, the first level of check normally is on the labeling of the product. We have seen a lot of issues as well with labeling of smart protein products. Certain products may be allowed to be called a particular by a particular name in a particular jurisdiction. They may have certain mandatory information, such as the nutritional information in a particular format, or other requirements that need to be complied with before the product should be allowed to get into the market. The third major aspect that is applicable is to know whether or not the product requires registration, whether it requires registration only of the product in its standard form, whether the importing jurisdiction requires you to provide a recipe sheet to know what are the ingredients that are being used in the product, and if there are allied compliances or not. So you would necessarily need to know what are the product registrations. Certain smart protein products may also be considered as novel food products and may require additional registrations under the importing country's jurisdiction as well. We will delve into that in the subsequent slides in slightly more detail, but you would need to know what are the requirements and does your product require registration in the importing country before you can export it or not. And of course, as any exports from India and any imports into any jurisdiction, you would also need to comply with certain set of documentation which are normally provided and prepared in the exporting country. So if you're exporting from India, you would require certain documents that need to be in place before you can export the product, which would be checked at the time of importation into the importing country. Next slide, please. We'll delve a little more into the documents that are required for export. So on the left-hand side, while this is a very generic list of documents that are required, most of these documents are required for all exports. The right-hand side are documents which may be required depending on how you're actually exporting the product. You would require to provide a pro forma invoice or a commercial invoice for the products that you're exporting, basis which the importing country would decide what duties are applicable on it, how it is classified in your invoice. You may also be required to provide an HS code basis which these duties are calculated, so on and so forth. You also need to provide a packaging list, which is basically all that is going into your packing when you're exporting. Certain packing material as well require certain documentation. For example, if you're packing it with plastic, or if you're packing it in wooden containers or metal containers, so on and so forth, and all of those need to be declared. You would require a certificate of origin that the product is actually made in India and is being exported from India. There are certain FTAs, free trade agreements, that the government of India has with various countries, which require you to have a certificate of origin to get certain preferential treatment while importing a product. We'll discuss about FTAs in detail in the coming slides as well. There are free sale certificates that are required, which basically is to state whether or not your product is freely sold in the exporting country or not. You would also require, as I mentioned earlier, an import-export code, which is issued by DGFT. The documents on the right-hand side are optional documents which may be required sometimes depending on where you're exporting. These include, if you're, say, for example, sending your product by ship, you may require an ocean bill of lading. If you're sending it, if it is being transported by land itself, if you're, say, exporting to Nepal or Bangladesh, you may require an inland bill of lading. If you're sending it by air, you would require an airway bill. You may also require, depending on the terms that you have negotiated with the importer in the importing country, you may require to provide the cost for the duties or insurance, so on and so forth. An FSSAI license is a document that is being looked at by the customs authority to ensure that these products are actually manufactured, or you have the permission to manufacture these products in India or not. This also connects with your free sale certificate. A number of countries accept FSSAI license as a free sale certificate as well. Certain countries may require you to obtain a specific free sale certificate, and that depends on the regulations of the importing country. Next slide, please. So how do you identify a market that you would be exporting to? India has been exporting to across the world, and our trading partners, we've seen a rise in the share of our trading with partners as well. Some of the favored destinations have, of course, been USA, UAE as well. And I know, as a matter of fact, the co-panelist in today's session would also give you more details about how to export to UAE. So how do you decide which market you should export to? There are multiple factors that you would need to take into consideration. First, of course, is the market type, whether or not your product would be accepted in that market, whether there is a demand for that for the smart protein product that you're exporting from India into the importing country. If, say, for example, you're exporting to the EU, while there is a large market for smart protein products, EU also has certain additional restrictions on genetically modified products, so on and so forth. So, and they may have certain additional requirements that you may need to comply with. So you should ideally look at what market you're looking at and whether or not your product would actually have would be a right fit for that market or not. Of course, there are you need to look and understand and finalize your market entry strategies before you get into any particular market. Government of India also supports certain export strategies in terms of providing funding for certain expos, and we'll dwell in that in a little while. You would also need to know your partner, your importer who will be importing the product into that country of jurisdiction. You may need to provide your business information to your partner in the importing country and ensure that that everything is aligned in that sense between your partner in the importing country and you from India while you're exporting the product. Other considerations also include, economic and political highlights of that country, as well as cultural considerations. As I mentioned, certain countries require you to have, say, a halal certificate. Those fall into cultural considerations as well. There are certain products which may be accepted better in a particular jurisdiction and may not be accepted better in another jurisdiction. I'll give you an example. Even if you're looking at India, and if you were to import a product into India, there are multiple cultural considerations that you need to take into account when you're getting a product into India. We all heard of certain political crises which were highlighted in association with cultural highlights in the state of Uttar Pradesh, where a certain type of marking was prohibited, but later reconsidered, so on and so forth. So there are various considerations that you as an exporter may need to look at before you decide to export to a particular market, which will be for your exports. Next slide, please. You've decided where to export. Government of India also helps Indian manufacturers and Indian product owners, marketers to send their products outside. There are multiple set of schemes that the Government of India runs, administers, and gives certain benefits, allowing you to explore new markets and get your product placed in these new markets as well. One of the most important schemes is the market initiative scheme, incentives scheme that the DGFT runs. All these schemes are actually available under the foreign trade policy. The last foreign trade policy came out in 2023, and it ideally a foreign trade policy is valid for 5 years. Taking a cue from global governments, India has decided that the 2023 policy is going to be more of a living creature and would be modified as and when required. And it provides various incentives which exporters can use. So the market access initiative scheme under the export foreign trade policy allows exporters to explore a particular geography, a particular country to export their products. These include that uh, you know uh, through certain export houses or governmental agencies such as APIDA, um, FIO, and various others, you get an opportunity to participate in food expos across the world, where the government would pay you, or rather would get you a stall to put your would would assist you to get a stall in these expos at a subsidized cost, along with, at times, for new markets, such as our Africa initiative, even provide you flight tickets to go and man your stall at the expo to get further business and venture into that particular country. Some other schemes include an advance authorization schemes for and this, just to give you a brief overview, what happens is there are certain inputs that are required, imported inputs that are required when you're manufacturing your product. The government allows you to get these products without paying custom duties, provided that you are only going to use them for manufacture, and your final products in which these inputs are used will be exported out of the country to foreign countries. There are other schemes such as a duty drawback scheme, or even ROTTEP, which is a refund of all the taxes and charges that would be put in, or rather are used during the process of manufacturing. I'm sure all of you in your businesses have seen how GST works. ROTTEP is in one sense similar. Your GST first is refunded, but there is an above and beyond other taxes which may be embedded into the cost of your inputs, which are also refunded back by the government. Uh, there is a new scheme that the government of India is also coming out specifically to tie up with e-commerce uh, players and have warehouses in districts to allow companies that manufacture food products in India to and offer them logistic solutions to actually ship these products to their destinations across the world, with a tie-up with India Post. They are going to have massive warehouses. The first pilot is already started with in Lucknow, where the government of India is setting up a warehouse where they would stock your products, and as and when you get orders, on basis of your instructions, they would be shipped across the world using um, using India Post as the basis. Also, Indian embassies provide certain support to Indian exporters while exporting. These also include, while certainly they are not going to identify distributors for you, however, they do step in to verify the legal nature or authenticity of the distributor whom you may be engaging with. And there are trade desks at almost all the major embassies, Indian embassies around the world, who help Indian Indian exporters to ensure that their products are treated fairly in the importing country. So while the support from government is there, how do you identify what kind of product is that you're exporting? I know this is a step back, and just wanted to give you a preface of how or what or where smart protein food products fall as well. In India, we have four broad categories. Number one being standardized food products. Standardized products are basically those products for which standards already exist in the food safety and standards regulations under the FSSAI. Proprietary food products, unlike the word proprietary in English, the proprietary food are those food products that are manufactured or that use standardized ingredients, permitted ingredients, but do not have a standard by itself. And I'll give you a very simple example, as simple as mayonnaise. Mayonnaise, which is a very commonly accepted product, is a proprietary product because mayonnaise does not exist in the list of standardized food products. Nutraceuticals is a broader category which includes nutraceuticals, health supplements, food for special dietary uses, and food for medical uses. And India is the only country that has a separate designation for these products. And the last is novel food products or non-standardized food products. These are products that are generally not consumed as food or do not have a safe history of being consumed as food. For smart protein food products, they normally are under proprietary food products or under non-standardized or novel food products. It's important to know that, if your product falls within the non-standardized or a novel food product, these food products require certain permissions from the government, from FSSAI, in order to be sold in the market. So, and once your product is allowed to be sold in the Indian market, there may be advantages for you to export as well. Certain other countries may also require you to replicate this process for non-standardized or novel food products in different countries as well, in their respective countries as well, which would include submissions of dossiers to ensure and get the product registered as safe. I'm sure multiple of you would have heard the term GRAS, which actually stands for generally accepted as safe, um, uh, generally regarded as safe. These products are basically safe to be consumed as food, and uh, you may require to have your smart protein product registered in these countries as well. I just thought that I'll take just a quick overview of four main markets, as to what you need to do in order to export to to these jurisdictions. First is the European Union, and European Union, which is a conglomerate of 29 different countries. You need to know that there are uh, common regulations that are applicable across these 29 countries when you're exporting to these countries. I won't get into much of the details in terms of what are the regulations and how they may affect your product when you're exporting from India, but would just want to flag that these are requirements that you would need to comply with. Similarly, similar to FSSAI, we in Canada there are regulations that regulate safe food and have requirements for traceability, compliance, so on and so forth, which the Canadian Food Authority enforces as well. Uh, while US law is very liberal, next slide, please. While US law is very liberal, there are various compliances that you need to ensure to do when you're exporting these products in. Some of these, one of the most important ones is registration of your facility in India. If your product is a standardized product, which is normally free to sale, so on and so forth, it would be very easy for you to export. If you have a distributor, you also need to give additional information when your product is landing into United States so that the US FDA is prepared to inspect and clear your food consignments. In the UK, there are different agencies separate for England, separate for Scotland, so on and so forth. And each of these agencies also implement a similar legislation as FSSAI. You would need to comply with these regulations when you're exporting these products into that market. I know I'm running out of time, so I'll quickly move to the challenges that companies like uh, the companies that face today. The first and the most important challenge is that there is no uniform classification for the HS code. The harmonized code is a code that is required for all products that are internationally traded. Um, at times, it creates an issue because of the nomenclature as well, because a lot of products under smart protein may be carrying a name that may be similar to a different HS code. For example, if you call your product mock meat, there are chances that the system may just recognize the word meat and classify it differently. You need to ensure that they are classified basis the raw materials that are used. Say if it is soy based, it will be categorized under a soy based HS code. That is something that you would need to take care of, and this is a big challenge because at a wrongful classification can result in your product not being permitted to enter into that particular market. uh, Certain countries also have restrictions or directions on what names can be used. I'm sure a lot of y'all are already aware that even in India, we've been pushing back with FSSAI regarding the use of the word milk for plant-based milks. And as of today, there is a stay which permits companies to use the word milk. However, similar restrictions are there in different countries as well. France, for instance, has a restriction when you can use the word milk or meat. Even when it is a complex name such as mock meat or so on and so forth. Uh, so you would need to, these are some other challenges that are there as well. The other major challenge, of course, is you know uh, uh, ensuring that your product is accepted in different markets for their taste and preferences, as well as awareness of such products in the international markets. You may, for example, we may have a product such as soy chap, which is technically a protein product, which may be exported from India in a different manner, or um, a chicken nugget which is made from different uh, soy based and other plant based ingredients. Whether or not that demand or that name is widely accepted within the foreign jurisdiction is a major challenge. A lot of these smart protein products are also not ambient, which results in inadequate logistics and infrastructural support that is available for for manufacturers and brand owners in India to actually export your product outside the country, especially if transit time is longer and your product shelf life is comparatively shorter. um, and these would also have considerations such as packing, efficient distribution systems, so on and so forth. I will stop at that, and looking forward to your questions, if any, and I'm available to answer them to the best of my ability. Thanks. Oh, just
Thank
be
you,
back to
Harsh.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Harsh. Hello, everyone. So, thank you so much, Harsh, for the detailed overview of the regulatory requirements for exporting the smart protein products from India. Your insights into the necessary licenses, labeling regulations, and the documentation process provide invaluable guidance for companies looking to navigate the complexities in international trade. Understanding the specific import regulations in target markets like EU, USA, UK is really crucial for ensuring compliance and avoiding potential pitfalls. I'm sure that our participant found it super useful. And then let's move to the some questions from our participants. So I have this one question. Can you elaborate on the challenges companies facing in obtaining FSCI licenses, especially when dealing with novel or non-standardized smart protein products, and how these challenges can be mitigated?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. So, when you have a novel food product under Indian regulations, at least, there is an established framework for registering such novel food products under FSSAI. We have a novel food or a regulation that is specifically targeted for these in order to get a license to manufacture and market such products which are considered novel. The first step is to get the novel food approval from FSSAI. Once you get the novel food registration from FSSAI, you can use that registration to get your license almost immediately in that sense. Once your novel food product is approved by FSSAI headquarters in Delhi, you can use that to obtain a central license from on FOSCOS and upload the approval that is given for your novel food product into the system, and FSSAI will the regional offices would know that FSSAI has already looked at it and approved your product, making the license process comparatively simple.
Thank you so much, Harsh. And there is this another question which maybe you can take really quickly. Which are the most common documentation errors you have seen companies make when exporting food products, and how they can be avoided?
So again, a very, very valid question. One of the things that I mentioned in terms of challenges is the biggest error that most of the companies make. Uh, that's the most frequent error that we have seen is a wrongful HS classification. Now, while HS codes are classified or rather are prepared on a global level by the World Customs Organization, they are made up to 6 digits there. Each country has 8 digits or 10-digit classification of products, and there may be a possibility that there is a mismatch in terms of the HS code that you are putting in your documentation on your export invoice, on your bill of lading, so on and so forth, which results in stoppage of your product in the importing country till the time, and you may have to supplement it with additional documentation to get the product cleared that it's actually the correct HS code. That is one more important aspect that you need to pay attention to while you're exporting. The other documents where we've seen errors being made are the terms and conditions that you may enter into agreement with your importer in the foreign country as well. INCO terms or international trade terms, who is going to pay for what, is something that is pre-decided. It you should make sure that your product is covered by insurance, so that if there are additional damages or uh, aspects that become applicable when the product reaches the uh, country intended where it has to be imported, if there are issues, that will at least help mitigate the losses. But the two major places where we've seen a lot of errors being made, first is in terms of your HS code classification, and second is not having a clarity in terms of what are the INCO terms that are applicable, so that and we've had some of our clients face a problem where they've said, oh, now we need to end up paying additional demurrage in a foreign country, which was not even what we'd not expected. So those are two common points that should be looked at while exporting food products.
Thank you, Harsh, for that. And we have several more questions, but in interest of time, I will be moving on to the next session, and we will follow you up with you on those questions. So I will introduce our next speakers, Sanjay Kevlekar and Sudhakar Patnaik, co-founders of Resources Nature Trading LLC. Sanjay and Sudhakar have decades of experience in the food industry and are deeply passionate about sustainability and promoting Indian brands in Middle East. Under their leadership, Resources Nature Trading has quickly expanded its offering, becoming a key player in Middle East market. Today, they will discuss the process of setting up export operations, identifying the right product and market fit, engaging in the overseas partnership with aligned vision. Sanjay and Sudhakar, over to you.
Thank you, GFI India, for having us today, and welcome everyone for joining in. I'll try to go through these slides quickly since I think we have overrun on the time. I'm Sanjay Kavlekar, Managing Director and co-founder of Resources Nature. We are based in Dubai and specializing in promoting plant-based and organic foods. Together with my co-founder, Sudhakar Patnaik, we carry out distribution, sales, development across the region, offering end-to-end services from imports, warehousing, logistics, sales into retail food services, and so on. A quick and brief introduction of ourselves. Sudhakar is a successful career professional from the FMCG and personal hygiene industry, a career spanning over 3 decades. As for myself, I've been an entrepreneur for just over 30 years, establishing and managing businesses diversified into infrastructure and operation management in telcos across the GCC region, facility management, and institutional services in aviation, healthcare, and hospitality. There's lots to talk about, but I'll highlight on some important aspects, many of which have been echoed by Harsh and very rightly and correctly presented. Let me know once you see the screen. I'll switch over to the presentation now. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can. But the presentation is, yeah, now it's visible.
Wonderful. So to begin with, why do we need to go global? It's possible that the local markets or domestic markets are small and the offtake is low. It's also possible due to congestion in the market with many players in the industry, and overseas demand is much higher than in local and markets. Plant-based has matured a lot and mainstreamed in the Western markets much earlier. There's a huge potential for white labeling in supermarket chains across Europe, and there's a huge demand within restaurants and cafes as well. And this is what customers demand today. Sorry, I think I have a pop-up on the screen here. Okay.
Yeah, it's a survey that has popped up.
Right, right. Okay. Getting back to the screen, competitive advantage. We feel that India has a very strong R&D capability and a competitive production advantage. And I've seen this happening on many fronts from Western brands doing their R&D back in India, but leveraging marketing and selling back in their home countries. We believe strongly that India has the potential to be the manufacturing capital for this industry going forward. Another reason to globalize is to grow faster. Additional markets help to attain economies of scale and grow quicker, and also help for better valuations, like what startups may be looking at for higher valuations or for additional funding or early exit. Why do you want to get abroad is fine, but you need to be prepared for it. And how do you do it? You need to understand nuances of international markets before you step out. And we'll just highlight a few pointers. Ensure you have adequate resources, such as sufficient capital lined up for manufacturing and inventory, marketing, and promotions. Ensure you have products that appeal and fit to the market in these specific markets. Engage teams which are professional, or it could be even a single personnel, a few personnel in the team to coordinate with your internal operations against overseas contacts. Begin with a single point contact to communicate effectively and promptly. This is very, very important. Your packaging has to be appropriate and appeal to the consumers and to the international standards with the quality and style that you offer. Labeling is very common with ingredients and nutritional tables, net weights of packs and country of manufacture. But you need to also comply with the local regulations. And most importantly, please use barcodes and batch numbers, and which is quite often missing from Indian brands. And a very important point here is please do not print Indian MRP prices on your export packs, which we find so often from Indian products. In case of food exports, they prefer PVC pallets over wooden because wooden pallets need to be fumigated, and hence it's quite elaborate, the process. If strapping is carried out during palletization, ensure you have edge protectors so as not to damage the cartons during shipment. Again, as Harsh had mentioned earlier, keep your certification and test reports updated, as it is mandatory in most of the countries, such as health certificate, halal accreditation, if required, not mandatory in most countries. Even in some Muslim countries, it's not mandatory, but good to have. It takes a long time to process, anywhere between 3 to 6 months. GMO and gluten-free certifications, if your labels claim to have them. And we request that you recognize, use, engage recognized and certified labs, because this only validates your adherence to quality. Plan and budget for your marketing promotions, such as samples for trials and tasting, rebates and discounting during launch, and engaging in merchandisers, promotional personnel in stores and during events. for marketing collateral, maybe in stores and online sales. And a very important thing that we'd like to highlight here, which many brands or startups don't carry, is comprehensive information on logistics. You need to provide high resolution images, HSN codes, as rightly said, identifying the product classification and import duty structure, key attributes of your products, contents of per package or per carton, carton dimensions or pack dimensions, net and gross weight of cartons, total volumes and total gross weights. Very important information for the buyer or the logistics company to manage your exports. How to identify a market? You would probably want to go at any corner of the world. It could be Asia, Middle East, Europe, or North America, but choose a single market. And by this, I mean choose a country and not a region, because that is where you can consolidate, champion it, and then look for further expansions. Just, it's a step-by-step approach. Understands your market very well. The market should be prevalent to your product and offerings to succeed. Research them well, the sizes and trends. Plant-based foods are consumed, for different reasons. In the West, it is consumed for sustainability or cruelty to animals, whereas in Middle East, which is a very high consuming market, plant-based is preferred for health conscious reasons. So research them well. In the retail domain as well, research very well in areas like preferred shelf life, listing fees, private labeling opportunities, promoting and discount norms. These all vary between country to country. Understand local cultures and tastes very well, their likes and preferences. For example, in Dubai, which hosts almost 150 nationalities with very taste-seeking natural and healthy foods. So culture and ethnicity is a key driver here. Food services cater to diverse demographies. In addition, with building awareness and conducting cooking sessions among culinary professionals, we ask you to adapt your food formulations and pack to meet local needs and requirements, or local laws in some cases. Understand the competitive advantage of the landscape, either retail or food services. Again, I would like to state Dubai as an example. It's a very competitive market. We have over 25 brands, known brands in plant-based meat alternatives. Each one is trying to vie for a market space and survival. So know what is going on in the markets. Retail, again, selling requires deep pockets, marketing spend, high listing fees, merchandising costs, and so on. So be absolutely certain that you have the appetite for this before you walk that path. And as Harsh again mentioned, look for government incentives like the CEPA, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between India and UAE, which allows for waiver or even reduction of import duties on specified categories, which requires the brand or the exporter to register first to be eligible at the inbound port. And finally, have a good go-to-market strategy with an in-depth understanding of the market. Adopt a strategy that fits your business and has the right attributes for winning. Understand product segmentation and demand, basically what moves well and where. If you have several SKUs, then identify which of these suits better in retail vis-a-vis HoReCa or the food services. And if you have several products or SKUs, you don't have to launch them all at the same time. It could be done, in steps. While engaging into exports, very important to engage into strategic partnerships, and we'll highlight only 3 important points here. Align vision means, let's say again, plant-based food. It is a very special category. Find a partner who is also passionate about sustainability and healthy foods, and one who shares your vision, one who sees the potential and is willing to grow with you. This is very important because you have to be aligned on the thought process and in the execution. Now, as initial volumes are not going to make economic sense until you have reached those certain levels of sales, it is vital for both parties to acknowledge realistic timelines and work closely with trust to ride out the initial hiccups or the ups and downs, because these things take time. Don't expect things to happen overnight just because overseas markets are more mature. And choose a complementary partner with complementary capabilities to your core competencies. that would go just beyond distribution and sales. This is highly valuable. This would include functioning as an extended part of your organization, sharing common goals, having good knowledge of the market and competition, being aware of regulation and procedures, and most of all, leveraging local relationships. I'd like to state here that strategic partnerships, embracing long-term visions as against short-term goals, are always in favor of the brand. And of course, all stakeholders as well benefit from it. So look at the long-term views and not short-term gains. I'll go clockwise on this slide. See, distributors form an integral part of your supply chain ecosystem. In essence, they are your logistics arm, the one who brings several business opportunities and carry out fulfillment to the last mile or to the clients. And they work at different levels, offering services depending on size, diversity of the country. Basic services could be warehousing, logistic, value-add services, like coordinating with local authorities, product registration, market positioning, establishing reseller and channel relationships, and most importantly, providing vital market intelligence. Please do appreciate the workings of a distributor. One has to appreciate the high costs associated with import, storage, and handling. And distributors always have limited space in their facilities with several brands that they have to manage. So we prefer, or distributors rather prefer, to turn around stocks over shorter periods and timelines than hold large stocks over extended period. Create a demand for your product before you carry them to your markets or to your distributors. Distributors are frequently approached by several brands at either startups or established brands, and therefore they're very selective when it comes to onboarding products. And they really truly appreciate efforts by a brand who has already created a demand for their marketing, for their products in the market, and it helps to scale up quickly and take off quickly. Another important aspect is keep fair margins. Don't look at distributors as a layer. Understand the value add that they're putting in. Their overheads are high, even more so in the chiller and frozen categories. Until volumes are attained, cost of goods sold is high. So really be sensitive and realistic to their needs. They incur fixed overheads even and costs irrespective of the volume sold. So it's always a ticking time bomb to get the goods out of the door. And they get paid only when you get paid. So we get paid as distributors much later on through the clientele. So it's important you engage with them in an open and honest relationship. Please do align your expectations with them beforehand. What you desire against what value-add propositions they can offer. Enter into good and binding contractual agreements, clearly defined roles and terms, so to protect all interests. Sales team and support, wow. It's often said, you guys are the #1 driver of your success. No one can sell the product as good as you can. The distributor needs to be assured that you're doing your own sales or even providing necessary support on pre-sales. You need to actually be on the ground initially to teach him or handhold him to walk the talk. So it's basically your products that are going to be sold that way much better. And the fact of the matter remains today that the reality is retail chains and distributors actually both alike are presently reluctant to invest in plant-based. You see, unlike FMCG products, PBF or plant-based foods is very much an emerging market in the Middle East, at least, and sales are slow. While there is scope for growth, the onus on increasing acceptance remains with the brand for now. So you need to be involved and you need to be patient, but have a long-term roadmap. Scaling and commercializing. Very interesting reports out there. Some studies have shown that over 80% of new product innovations in food sector fail before they even go to the market. This is what the reports say. Research also says that large percentage of consumers are very reluctant to try out plant-based products again, and we have experienced this ourselves in these markets. And this can be attributed because consumers are not involved at the right time or during the right conditions. So you need to understand what can be done. Consumer co-creation is important. That means knowing when the consumer is going to be involved and where. See where the trends are going, what restaurants are doing in terms of mixing ingredients to meet, again, consumer preferences. Get feedback from trials from consumers, very, very important. This engagement will allow you to tweak or reinvent your products and price. And we have seen this happen quite successfully with a couple of brands that we've been working in the past year. And just re-engineer or re-strategize. Food, again, is very personal. Tastes that suit local culture or purchase patterns. Differs from country to country, actually. What works in one country is not necessarily accepted in another country. So understand your market, again, very well. And another important point here being the right price point vis-a-vis appropriate product positioning. We have come across brands which say, okay, the Beyond Burger sells at a certain price, so we'll sell our product too at that price. It doesn't happen that way. Be realistic in accepting your product and brand positioning. We would suggest you use competitive advantage on price, taste, and versatility to scale and mainstream. And that would work very well for Indian brands, we believe. Creating a demand and differentiation is also important. Educate your customers on health benefits, ingredient versatility, and affordability of alternate proteins in your particular product in particular. Create a value add for your product. Select the right channels. If barrier to entry is high in supermarkets, as usually in this part of the world due to high listing fees and merchandising cost, start with e-commerce or food services or even hospitality to launch up and scale up. Not easy task, but these two are challenging, but lower entry costs than retail, and a good proposition to begin. Again, you are the best salesman, and you're the one who has developed the product and is very passionate about it. So get involved in introducing and pitching to potential customers. Use your culinary experts to interact with the chefs in food services. Invest in culinary workshops and roadshows. Again, a very successful exercise that we have executed here in the past 6-8 months. Ensure your product attributes are better communicated. Illustrate why your product, your process, your ingredients, nutrition value are superior, taste better, and why your value proposition is better to retailers and food services. You have to be different to be noticed. Very true. Some brands we have seen compete with each other with identical product offerings, especially in India. And in some instances, these products are even manufactured in the same factory. So create a clear distinction between your and other brands. Demonstrate a competitive advantage or against domestic or even global brands. Very important in product positioning. And most important, not the least, is research markets very well. Cannot emphasize this enough before you deep dive. Learn from the first movers in the smart protein segment. There are many lessons to be learned or to be taken from other startups. Understand what works for you before you foray into global markets. Before I conclude, I'd just like to give a brief overview of how we function in this region. Resources Nature works on particularly 3 models: a supply chain, a partnership, a trade model. In the first instance, or a supply chain model, the brand already has a customer but non-existing in the market, and the customer wants to procure locally. So we act as their supply chain and distribution partner on ground, and also assist in expanding customer base. We do not invest in the goods in this model. In a partnership model, we work in partnership with the brand. Each party carries a shared burden. The brand maintains stocks in Dubai as against their factory in home country. And based on mutually agreed sales terms and marketing strategy, we ensure selling into resellers, retail food services, and also re-export markets. And the last model is a trade model, where once we see potential and scalability in the product, we purchase these products outright on either FOB or CIF terms, and we take ownership of the goods to scale and grow. But then again, with sales and marketing support from brand. Please do remember that in all scenarios, we work under comprehensive contractual agreements, securing interests of both parties with clearly defined scope of responsibility, role, and operations for everyone. Transparency being very important, both in inventory level management and sales data. I'd like to conclude here. The alternate protein landscape is very young and emerging, so and holds huge potential for growth. And we really wish every one of you the very best. And you can reach us out at these contacts to Sudhakar or I for any further clarifications or insights. We'd be very happy to share with you. Thank you.
Two. Sanjay, may I?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Just to add to what Sanjay has mentioned, he has given all of us a complete overview of the ecosystem out there for export market. Uh, in a session of about half an hour, it's so very difficult to actually go point by point. There are a whole lot of things which are there in between the lines and in terms of the concepts. Um, we have two bases, Dubai, where Sanjay is doing the front ending, trying to do and help us out in all kinds of regulatory as well as market initiatives. I'm here in India now for the convenience of people who want to check out information, how to go about various things. They can certainly get in touch with us, and then we'll try helping them out, giving with the basic information. Then Sanjay can actually do the complete structuring and see how the interest can be met. Thank you.
I would request, thank you so much, Sudhakar. Thank you so much, Sanjay ji. We have a short poll here for the audience to answer some of the questions that will help us understand the interest of the audience as well as at what stage of their export journey they are at. So please answer these questions and these insights will be really valuable. Thank you so much. While you are answering these questions on the poll, I'll also take a few questions from the audience. Mr. Sanjay, I think you already put a bit of highlight on this, but I think the audience still is very keen in learning what's the best starting point to start selling overseas. I mean, if you could just give us some context on this, I think this is will be valuable.
Difficult to say sitting at on this side of the ocean, but everybody wants their businesses to grow. And the number one factor is just because it works well in India doesn't mean it works well overseas. So really appreciate and understand what is overseas, what the markets that you're getting into. Go over there and study them. Just don't take it at face value at what we provide you with the information or the market intelligence. Really understand it. It's wishful thinking that yes, we will do it and we are very optimistic, but it's a whole different ball game or gamut when you get into it. So just lessons learned here from past experiences, which we'd like to share with any one of you, and the do's and don'ts. And the final call is yours. But do your research. Do your research very well.
The more to add to that, the more you sweat in doing the research, knowing the markets, understanding the ecosystem in a place, the less you'll bleed going forward. It's so very important to actually uh, see what markets can provide, and only then think in terms of exporting. Now, just to say, now in India, the common notion is exports get you higher revenue, higher margins, and also is visible internationally. Now, whereas all these could be true, it's not all that easy. It doesn't happen with a switch of a button where you say that, okay, these three, four, or maybe additional add-ons come in the moment I switch it on. So one has to go through the mill and actually realize it. And that's where Sanjay and people who are associated with the team can actually help you fine-tuning the codes, letting you know where exactly one can move and explore. And that's a very difficult question to answer, as Sanjay said. Think that these are the mantras, and here you go. And the moment you hit, let's say, X crores in Indian turnover, you can look at exports, or without even hitting that, you can look at. So there cannot actually be a benchmark or a thumb rule on that.
Thank you so much, Sanjay and Sudhakar, for trying to answer this difficult question, and I understand your insights are all valuable. We'll quickly move to Akash for now, and we'll come back to a question and answer round later. We learned from Akash that he has to be somewhere else after this webinar, and we're already running late. So I'd like to welcome Akash. He's the co-founder of OatMLK, and his experience for exporting to 5 different countries already would be really insightful. So Akash, most welcome. I think you can already take the stage.
Hey guys, am I audible?
Yes, Akash, you're audible.
Hello. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen 1 second. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Akash, we can see the Zoom application at the moment.
1 second. Stop sharing it. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, your slides are visible now.
Perfect, perfect. So first of all, thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking time out and doing this, and everyone who's listening. Amazing, guys. Today was a holiday, and you guys still made it. So thank you and thanks a lot. So I mean, yeah, I know a lot of people like people before Sanjay ji and everyone told you guys of all the legalities and all the documents you need, but I'm gonna talk to you like how you go as a brand. Like, what did we do? Why did we do it? And how we reached where we are today. So yeah, before everything, we made milk from oats, and it's called oat milk. We made in 100% sustainable, recyclable glass bottles. Our products are 15-month shelf stable, and currently we are exporting to UAE, Singapore, UK, Maldives, and Nepal. So UAEs are one of the biggest markets right now, and as Sanjay ji mentioned, like marketing is very important, and having clear, I want to say clear topics and clear understanding of the distributor is very, very important. So that is the first thing. But from a brand's perspective, I have made a 3-step process which is needed, which I feel nobody mentioned before me, on how actually from a brand perspective you take a product out and why do you do it. So why did we do it? Because as we all know, India is at a nascent stage for its plant-based protein section, and we still are doing really well. We are present on Instamart, Blinkit, Zepto. We are all over the place, and then after a point, we feel that uh, like the buying audience is limited, and the new and new products are coming in. So cannibalism is happening even in our small market shares. So we're like, why not? Let's enter bigger market shares. So that's where the 3-step process as a brand I feel is very important. First is the pricing. If the pricing doesn't sit well, the product will never sell. Like for example, UAE, Singapore, and even for that matter, Maldives is a very export-centric market. So when exporting from India to there, you will always meet the pricing because you will be competing with players from Europe, you will be competing with players from America. So your pricing will always be better if you are moving to UAE or Singapore or even Maldives for that matter. So pricing is very, very important. You add your cost, you add your current market pricing, how much is the competition selling at, what apps they're selling at, first mile, last mile, freight, health certificates, and all. So all the cost, please add to your product and see if you're actually making the margins. Warehousing, how and where your stock will be placed, the movement, the sampling, how will you get a product to people. So that all is very important. Pricing like is very, because like for example for us, we do not do Europe, we do not do Australia because the pricing will never sit. Even in the UK, we have recently started and the pricing is not sitting. But still, the thing is we are very distant. We have a glass bottle, so we sell it at a premium. We are okay with that. People are okay with buying also because they get 100% recyclable glass bottle, because Tetra Packs are obviously harming the environment. It has polythene in it. It's not being recycled. UAE, Singapore do not have any Tetra Pak recycling facilities. So in that sense, we are obviously solving the sustainability problem as well. So that is where our product is distinct. It's unique. Nobody else is doing it. That's why we can charge a bit of a premium. But again, you cannot go like if it's selling for two dirhams, you cannot sell it for 5. That's not gonna happen. Nobody's gonna buy. So that's rightly Sanjay said. So that's what we are doing. Our pricing is at cap, and we are actually doing really well. So that's how the first part, obviously the pricing, you that is 2 minute job. You can Google, you can open the apps on that particular country and see if the pricing will set. So that's how you can decide a particular country. Okay, this is where I want to go. The second is the partner. So talk to the people who are exporting, like who are already doing exports. Talk to them. They'll obviously guide you. They'll tell you a partner. They'll help you with it. Like I remember how we started UAE. We did a lot of heavy sampling, and today we are available in Choitrams. We are available in Lulu. We are starting Spinneys and Carrefour very soon. Hopefully by next week. So things are picking up for us. We are on Noon. We are on Kareem. So we did a lot of sampling. We talked to a lot of people. We visited a couple of times, as Sanjay ji rightly mentioned, and it happened without a lot of before. Like I stare you guys away. Without a lot of investment, we have done it. You do not need a lot of money. You just need the right pricing, right product, and at the right places. You just don't need to put money at your problems. You need to find what's the right thing to do and talk to a lot of people. So like I used to sit on LinkedIn 8 hours a day, finding people who are doing this and actually talking to people who have done this before and how they're doing it and what's working and what's not working. So that's where it is for us. And then the channels. So you need to decide where do you want to sell it. Do you want to do we don't have a UAE website because we are available on the apps and we do not have let's say so we are not on Amazon because with glass bottles we don't Amazon as such. We mostly focus on offline and offline only. We are a very offline based focused company. That's why we prefer these bigger stores. We prefer these quick commerce apps, and that's how we go about it. So our first entry is always quick commerce apps because in India it's hard Blinkit and Zepto, but on the other hand, Kareem and Noon are not very hard. They are still new in their own markets, so they are open to new products. So that makes it easy for us to list there than having a new city in Instamart. So that's the ratio. So that's how we compare. If we put money in UAE X amount, we put money in India. Where are the more returns coming in? That is after 2 years. Like after we have been doing this for almost 1.5, 2 years now, exports. And now today we sit at a place where we compare it like hand by hand. So it's not that hard. Once you decided you want to do it, you will do it. There are 10,000 documentations as mentioned by people, but it happens. It just happens. You want to do it, you can do it. It's not very hard. So I prefer, like obviously it's not going to happen overnight, but if you guys are thinking about it, go for it. Export is fun. uh, you actually end up making money, and if a product is actually good, people will buy, and then that's how it is, right? People will buy a product, you make money, you move forward. So that's pretty much it, and this is our product. So we are in Dubai, we are in London, and Singapore also. We currently are actually like today only had a meeting, so we will be launching in around 200 7-Eleven stores in Singapore, hopefully by November. But let's see how that goes. So that's pretty much it. This is our website, and this is my email business@oatmeal.uk. You guys can reach me there, and let's fix daily together. So we have kept our SKUs very limited. We do not do like 10 SKUs, 15 SKUs. We do only 3 SKUs, and we keep it till there only. We keep very precise because we know we want to go deep with these products. We don't want to go like left or right. We want to go straight and go to each and every store, each and every country until our product is there. That's the strategy we have taken. So R&D stops, money is then obviously money is limited, so R&D money is saved, right? So that's where we explore different markets. So you have to budget yourselves and go for it. It's not, you don't need a lot of deep pockets to do it. So I think that's pretty much from my end. I do not have a lot to add.
Thank you so much, Akash, for sharing this remarkable journey of OTMLK and your strategies for expanding into the international markets. Your emphasis on heavy sampling and the strategic use of both online and offline channels, it provided a really clear roadmap for startups aiming to establish the presence in the competitive international markets. You are certainly setting a very powerful example for all the companies in the smart protein sector in India. So would you be open
Thanks a lot.
to take maybe one or two questions quickly?
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind. I do have some
Sure,
time.
sure. Yeah. So I wanted to ask, like, there is this question from participants: what are the biggest logistical challenges you have faced when exporting oat milk, and how have you ensured that your
Actually,
product remains fresh and of high quality during transit?
Actually, it's easier to transport to overseas than in India. In India, the trucks they take the traces of oat milk and they break. In of overseas, you make pallets. They're sealed. Nobody's gonna touch it. Like it's properly ruined and it's handled well once it reaches the end location, right? And we are mostly with most of our distributors, we are on like 100% advance payments. But obviously, it took us 2 years to reach these terms because, as Sanjay ji mentioned, right, it takes once the distributor is uh, interested, once he feels the product is actually going to go through, then only they invest and take the product. So we are at that stage right now. So I feel it's easier to ship overseas than in India. So I mean, again, that's for us. But even when you're starting, I feel if the palletization is proper, nothing's going to happen to a product because they are more concerned, custom officers, than you for your product to spoil and reach a different right.
Yeah, that's true. So there is this another very interesting question: how do you approach building brand recognition and loyalty in the international markets when consumers may not be familiar with oat milk?
That is actually a very good question. So we understand our unique, as I said, our unique selling point is sustainability. So we reach out to the people who actually care about it. We start from like low, I want to say low hanging fruit because those people we know they care about it. They are plant based. Those are easier. So I first, personally, I joined at least 20 plant based groups of Dubai. I'm still there. And I talk to people, I interact with them, I build my own community. So yesterday only we launched our protein shake on noon minutes. So you can have 15 minutes delivery of our protein shake across Dubai, Sharjah, and Abu Dhabi. And I posted to them, and they bought. They actually started buying. Like so. The community building. You do it here, you do it there. You have to do it. You have to talk to people, and then they will only spread your word, right? So yeah, I mean that's how we did it. That's how I do it. I join a lot of local groups and see what people are actually doing.
Thank you for that insight. So I think this brings us to at the end of this webinar. So as we conclude today's webinar, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speakers, Harshidu Gursahani, Sanjay Kevalekar, Sudhakar Patnaik, and Akash Wadhwani for sharing their expertise and valuable experience with us. This was day of Raksha Bandhan and still you guys like managed to come here and share your insights. Also, I would like to thank all our participants for joining today's session. We hope that you are leaving with new ideas and strategies to explore and capitalize on the opportunities in the international markets. We will send up a follow-up email with the recording of today's session, additional resources, and information on how you can contribute and participate with GFI India. Please take a moment to complete the post-webinar survey. Your feedback is really invaluable to us. Thank you again to our speakers and all of you for joining us today. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.